Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest show. This is Radical Money. So today, I got a little more of a better setup lately. Got the whole computer set up. I got everything. I'm able to look at the statistics a little bit easier. To be able to give you guys the ultimate rundown of what I want to talk about. Right now, is actually the system I have running as the primary research device is going through some updates, but I already know exactly what I'm talking about on this one. So, what people are looking for, I noticed, and I get a few questions from friends and family and everybody I know about this. What is a recession-proof investment strategy? I keep thinking about it, and I know exactly what I do, but what I do is crazy, but I'm going to tell you anyway, because the crazier it is, surprisingly, usually the better it works. So the only reason people think my investment strategy is crazy is because nobody does it. And when nobody does something, the natural herd mentality within all of us questions it immediately. Now, the strategy I use is actually surprisingly very simple. It, depending on the funds you have, it can take anywhere from 5 days to 30 days to set up this style of investing. So it's actually easier when there's a recession because the drop off is so crazy that you can actually bet against the market and have substantial gains. My main suggestion to all you guys, and the reason I even do this show is to give you guys the craziest advantage possible. I really want to give you guys this crazy advantage. So, one of my strategies, my chief strategy, is this. Sorry, I was looking at the system. Anyway, you guys, sorry, it's been a long day. So my chief strategy is this. I buy a lot of put contracts on very shitty companies. This is one strategy I use, and I also do this. I also hedge my bets on some penny stocks I think are going to go up, but I'm more, I'm more bearish than I am bullish on it, for instance. So what I find very interesting, and I do this with Aurora Cannabis, and I've told this to people, but you really should buy puts in bad companies and buy stock in good companies. I'll give you an example I'll give you my top 5 list of stocks you should do put contracts on. Chesapeake Energy, it may be a little too late to do that for them because they are filing bankruptcy, so the contracts may be through the roof. So Chesapeake Energy, Aurora Cannabis, I have to say put contracts are probably your best bet on them. They're going through a reverse stock split. Just doesn't look good. JCPenney, any brick and mortar retailer, basically, but JCPenney is the number one on my list to always short, just because they're not going to survive any further damage to their brand and anything else. If I were to guess, my other two for the ones I would do a put contract on, I would have to say, what the frick is it? Airlines, any cruise line. So Carnival Cruise, I think, is going to be hit very hard by this unless they're financially prepared. I just don't think they are to handle this. I'd be pretty bearish on them. So I bet against them, put option contracts for sure. After I'm done with this list, by the way, I'll explain to you guys how to do a put option. Very simple. Fifth and final one. I don't know much about the airlines, but I know if I were you guys, I would go for the worst airline possible. Like the one that was underperforming well before this crash happened. So, and I want to say that it could be American Airlines. I really don't know. I'll have to do more research. That's actually one of the reasons why I had my computer up, was to do more research on it beforehand, but I figured I might as well just do the show because that was the only piece of information I didn't have. So I recommend do your own research for the airlines. So just find the basically just underperforming ones, low market cap airlines, because any airline of any kind that's public, that's lower rated, will be hit the hardest But here's the thing: there may be a bailout of the airline industry. So, my best recommendation would be to. Here's the thing: with the bailout of the airline industries like Delta, American Airlines, blah blah blah, you're probably better off. If I were you guys, I'd probably maybe buy stock. It's really tough. Airline industry is a weird one. I know recently Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway's CEO, sold all of his airline shares, and wow, what a wild ride! I did not expect to see that. So those are my top 5 ones that I would bet against for sure, and I have no shame in admitting this. So how do you do put contracts? Well, people have asked me this question too, and I think it should be explained a little bit easier. If you want to get into the options trading, there are 2 platforms I would highly recommend if you decide to do options trading. And I don't recommend doing call options. I really don't, unless you for sure know the stock is going up. But in a market like this, with so many companies crashing, you're just better off doing put contracts galore on the shittiest of all companies, of any shitty company. And basically what I do, if you guys want to know the truth of how I look for really shitty companies, I look for low market cap and I look at what the price per share is. If they're flirting with $1 per share, like maybe $1.10, $1.20 per share, if they're flirting with that dollar range and they're looking like they might fall below, yeah, if I were you guys, dude, I would absolutely do a put contract on any company like that, as long as they have a low market cap. If their market cap, actually, there's 2 ways to go about this, because sometimes I've done this with companies with high market caps. It's one of those use your best judgment things, but if they look really crappy and their balance sheets are awful, look at their financial statement. You can usually find a company's financial statement just about anywhere. You just got to take a look, and if you have trouble finding it, just call them up directly and try to get a hold of it, like as much as you can, because you want to make sure you understand. You want to make sure you understand the company's behavior overall, and then they'll give you the. That'll give you guys the ability to figure out what you should do with it, if you should buy the stock or if you should bet against it. I do bet against a lot of companies, and I'm successful about 9 times out of 10. There are times I fail, I'll admit it. Not often though, I'm right 90% of the time. But the times I'm wrong, it's typically, usually when I'm wrong, it's usually because I didn't do enough research. And that's a good thing to realize, that you need to do more research on the company, look up their financial statements, look up news articles, look up their earnings for the past 2 years, preferably. Sometimes you can do a year and that's fine, but it's better to have more data on them. So I sometimes do 2 to 3 years. So that's one thing. So as long as you have that understanding, you're good. What's the other one? Let me scoot in a little bit here so you guys can see me. I would say, by the way, if you guys decide, try to go for Christ. So okay, I already explained put contracts and the top 5 companies I would bet against totally. What are the top 5 companies that I would go for? That's the question one would need to ask. And so I actually debate myself a lot of the times. I always say there's not a lot of good companies to choose from. At least I usually say it's easier to find shitty companies than it is good companies. But usually it is surprisingly easy to find the good companies because they're talked about the most. They're very easy to find if you just go into a grocery store, for instance. If you... if you go to, you can find name brand anything because there's advertisements everywhere. So I always say, if you see a good advertisement for a company, look them up and see if they're traded public. It's always something I do. And sometimes I'll buy a few shares. I'll just hold on to the shares if I know it's a good company. But I always do it based on advertising. If marketing's good, great. It means I know they can at least get people attracted to their product. There are a few no-brainers out there that I'd always say. Like I said, always say, look at earnings, past 3 years preferably. If they're steady earnings, good. Preferably what you want to do if you're buying stock, especially during a bear market, sometimes it's good to look for a dividend payout. Because at least during bear markets, crazy bear markets at least, dividend payout stocks don't get hit that hard. So let's go over my top 5. I'm just going to go number 1 to 5. My number 1 favorite, I gotta say, there's a few of them. They're all in kind of wacky sectors. Coca-Cola is one of my favorites. I really don't know what my number 1 of all time would be, but Coca-Cola is absolutely my favorite stock of all time, just because of the pure fact it's the biggest brand. There's like no competition for them except for Pepsi, but they tranche any other competitor, so their competitors really got nothing on them. Coca-Cola is not only a master of marketing, but they're also a master of mass production in a global brand. They're like the Michael Jordan of soda. So Coca-Cola is my obvious one. In fact, the more the market bottoms, if stock prices keep going down, which I have a feeling there's going to be a recession. This is why I'm making this video for you guys, so you guys can get stocks that'll survive the recession and ones that'll most likely pay you a dividend. I cannot guarantee any of these. I just want to give you guys a heads up right now. There's never a guarantee in the market. I'm not liable for any of this at all. There's just ideas I personally have. I personally love to use. What works for me may not work for you. Having said that, I just said Coca-Cola is one of my main boys. If I was to go for a solid second, at the moment, I would say a lot of the tech companies, because the tech companies during quarantine time are going to be so useful. It's just crazy how useful these are going to be during during the quarantined times. So you're going to want to get a Microsoft or an Apple. I actually like to go with Apple over Microsoft, and I'll tell you why. One, Microsoft is great. Microsoft will always be here. Microsoft will always be used by businesses. In fact, I actually recommend investing in Microsoft. Microsoft was one of my first tech investments, but I actually invested in Microsoft before I ever invested in Apple. But I will say I prefer Apple overall. They have more products down the pipeline. They're a bigger brand. I would go with Apple over Microsoft, but I would definitely go with Microsoft. I mean, they're both, I would say choose whichever, because I think they're recession proof. Microsoft will always be there. As long as there are computers, as long as there are businesses, as long as there are people going on the web, there will always be a need for Microsoft. They've got cloud services. If there's quarantine, if people are in quarantine, those cloud services are used like crazy. Microsoft Teams is unreal. In fact, maybe more, I don't know. Apple's got a big pipeline of products, not only physical, but like in the software realm. So I would say it's kind of a toss-up between Microsoft and Apple. I would say either or, definitely good choices. So as far as the tech ones, I'd say Apple, Microsoft will be my number 2. Third, what would be my third? I didn't really prepare this list as well as I wanted to, but I do have a firm belief of what I really want, because I'm always so back and forth with these. The ones I'm going to mention are all pretty freaking good, but I'm so back and forth with this. So I'm a big Johnson & Johnson fan. I like any of the like cleaning products. I like any of the ones that just have any food related, any basic necessity stuff. Johnson & Johnson's pretty good. I can't remember their dividend payout though. But yeah, I'd say anything cleaning. Clorox is actually probably overvalued at this point, because people have been buying their stock like crazy. So I say Clorox, or what I say? I'd say just big names, Johnson & Johnson. Fourth would probably be, it's really tough because this recession is going to be interesting. And look, if you buy these stocks right now, or even partially buy them, it will be some time before these go up in value. That's just all there is to it. I just have a heavy sense there's going to be a recession, but I still think you need to stay in the market. You need to get in the market, get the dividend payouts. All right, we got 2 more on the list that I'm going to go over, okay? So, I wish I had I need to start using a teleprompter, by the way. If I had a teleprompter, I think this would be smoother sailing, but it just doesn't feel natural to do a teleprompter. I have a general idea of what I'm talking about. I just gotta talk from the spirit, from the heart. I think that's one of the reasons why you guys watch my show. So that's one of the reasons why I do this show, is to speak from the heart and give a good factual thing. Anyway, this is probably the longest video I've done in a while. If I was to say recession-proof, though, we got to go with what's going to stay when the dust settles. So you got to ask yourself, what is going to stay when the dust settles? That is the ultimate question one must always ask themselves. And I really do love Coca-Cola so freaking much. So I actually have a list. I think the system is finally done updating. Well, maybe not as much as I thought. Fuck. It's okay. I already kind of have a general idea. So any of the tech ones are pretty solid, at least any of the big name techs. So I would say more in the entertainment sector, you're going to want to go with Netflix. Netflix is going to have a huge subscriber count. People are staying home and watching The Tiger King. I definitely think Netflix is a major buy. At-home entertainment's going to be huge during quarantine time, and people love to be entertained. That's just all there is to it, man. We're a culture of instant gratification, and we love entertainment. I'm not a Netflix guy. I personally don't even have a subscription to Netflix. I personally don't even like Netflix, but I know a lot of people who do. A lot of people always tell me these shows I gotta watch. Just not into it. Let's see. And what would be fifth? Fifth, this is an unorthodox selection. So I say fifth one would be index funds. And I'm gonna tell you guys why, and you guys are gonna crack your ass up on why. So index funds, sometimes I hate them, but sometimes I love the fuck out of them, because like S&P 500 indexes are what you really got to watch for during crashes. Because the problem with the S&P 500 ones is they're full of fucking dog shit, right? They're full of dog shit. And I say that with all the love in my heart. The problem is, not everything on the S&P 500 is gold, even during a crash. There are a ton of there's a few airline ones on there that during a crash is bad. So here's the thing. The index funds are going to all go down. There's going to be massive sell-offs of index funds. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to periodically buy shares of index funds as it's going down, because you get a dividend payout from these either way. Now, there's also the possibility, though, they could cut dividends. They could cut dividends in times of an emergency. So you may go quarter after quarter after quarter without a dividend one. I prefer Vanguard. If you're going to go with the most trusted one, trusted name for index funds, go with Vanguard. They've been around. They know their shit. They're good. Another one would be, I think it's going to take a hit, is Berkshire Hathaway. They're kind of an index fund in a weird sense. I don't know what you would consider Berkshire Hathaway. They've always been an odd one to me. I mean, my mentor Warren Buffett is on there. It's tough. It's tough. But yeah, I would recommend completely Berkshire Hathaway, or I would recommend Vanguard's my preferred one. I love the Vanguard index fund. Especially during a crash, you're going to have such a good time. Anyway, so in conclusion, we kind of went over those. We went over the ones you don't want to get. The ones you want to bet against were the first five, and then the ones you want to buy stock in periodically. Please remember, and please let this be a warning, if you have $1,000 you want to invest, right? If you have $1,000 you want to invest, don't invest it all at one time. Dude, today we live in the era of no commission fees. I repeat, 0 commission fees. So it's okay to split your $1,000 in for 10 days or 5 days. I'll give you an example. Please do this if you're buying stock or even buying contracts. Okay? I have $1,000, let's say, right? And I tell myself, right? Here's what I'm going to tell myself. I'm going to take that $1,000 and I'm going to divide it by 10, all right? That's going to be $100 for 10 days, right? And what I'm going to do with these $100 in the next 10 days, I'm going to use the whole $100 every day for a maximum of 10 days, right? And then it will eventually equal 1,000. The reason you do this in days is to figure out the market. Now, you could take my methodology and you could use the $100 each day to buy stocks that are good stocks, good high quality companies that are down for the day, maybe 3%, maybe 4%. They had a bad news or bad earnings report, but they're still a huge ass company, always capable of growth. Coca-Cola, I don't care. AT&T. By the way, that's another one I forgot to mention. Let's put a sixth one. Any of the cell phone stocks will be great in my opinion. That's my theory. Verizon and AT&T will always be solid, so periodically buy shares in them. They pay a fat ass dividend and it's hot as hell. So definitely get those. In conclusion, like I was saying, you take that $1,000 you wanted to invest in one day and you divide it by 10, and then you split it and then you invest it slowly for 10 days. And I'll tell you why this is so important, because you can take huge advantages. This is like this is one of the reasons why I make money in the markets. You know, it takes time for me to make money, I'll admit it, but I make money because I'm patient. I split up my intended amount that I wanted to invest in parts of 10 or parts of 5, depending on how I'm feeling. And I find companies that are great, stellar, amazing. And if they had a down day, maybe I'll buy a share or two. The beauty is in today's era, and we need to take advantage of this, is there's no commission fees. So you don't have to buy that much stock without worrying about paying any form of a commission fee of any kind. So there's no commission fees that you have to worry about, and you'll be good. But no, I tell you guys this because I want to see more of you succeed. I see too many people in my age group worshiping cash, and I just don't agree with it. It's not good, mainly because cash isn't as valuable as one would think. I think America's valuable, for instance, but my problem with what I see lately is, one, cash isn't backed by anything but false government promises. I always repeat this in every video of mine. So don't hold on to as much cash as you think you need to hold on to. Of course, pay your bills. Get your shit done. Get your priorities right. Make sure you're investing in yourself. Decent food. I always recommend grapefruit. Grapefruit keeps you keen and healthy. But on a lighter note, this has gone on for 22 minutes. This might be my longest episode in a while. And I'm very proud of this episode. So I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch this. As always, keep tuning in. Always ask questions in the comment section. Feel free to send emails to garzabrands@gmail.com. My goal at this point, my desire, is to make sure you guys are financially educated during this crazy ass time. Because look, we don't know what's going to happen. There's always unknowns, there's always uncertainties. But I know one thing's for certain. I want to help. I want to get you guys on the right track, so we're going to help. But anyway, don't know how else I want to end this. This is probably the longest ending to any show I've ever done, but I want to thank you guys for taking the time to tune in, and I want you to have yourself an incredible day.